I will.
You. Is everyone okay with that? Is anyone?
Yes.
Yes. Because I'm already knowing this is going to be a powerful conversation. We want to have some official note taking via recording. So, all right, Reverend Roxanne, what is urban ministry to you? You're muted there, Reverend Roxanne. That's all right. We're
I
all
We
have that
got
same
t-shirt too.
I have that same T-shirt that Carolyn Jean has.
Right.
The problem is when I'm wearing it, I can't see it, so that's pretty good. But anyway, urban ministry for me is about being a part of the community, about being a part of the neighborhood. I think to reflect in the church what is reflected in your neighborhood, to get to know them, not just on Sundays, but, hang out with the kids at the community centers and help them with their homework in the afternoon, or do Saturday get-togethers with the neighborhood kids, maybe done a concert or two out in the beautiful weather for the neighborhood to come. I think urban for me really means becoming part of the community. And I loved what Carolyn Jean said about if someone's in pain, we're there. If someone needs something, we're there. But I think and I love that, and I so agree with that. What the thought process that I've had to work on in my church in trying to integrate into the neighborhood has been, we don't just make assumptions about what the neighborhood needs, that we have to ask them what they need. We're not going to show up on their front door and plant a bunch of flowers in the ground next to their door without asking them and being told that that's what they want. And what is it? How can we be of service to you? Maximum service to God and those around us. What is it that you need? And I've been working on it. My congregation's been working on it, but it is a completely different mindset. This church has been in this neighborhood 27 years, and nobody even knew it was there. The neighborhood is primarily African American, and nobody even knew it was there. It was hidden back behind a bunch of bushes. We've opened up the front and started going out. Instead of trying to get them to come in, we've been going out, which has required a tremendous amount of rearranging brain cells, I guess, getting rid of old messages, bringing in new information, and just being a part of our community. They told me that was what they wanted when they hired me, and I asked them double sure that that's really what they wanted. And those that really, really did want it are still there and still working to be a known entity in our own neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Reverend Prentice, what is urban ministry to you?
Well, urban ministry, originally when I got involved was like Carolyn said, Carol said, I saw cities and neighborhoods. But when I thought about it, I thought about in unity, we follow. Our way shower is the greatest urban minister ever, Jesus the Christ. And that led me to believe you got to meet people where they are. The folks, I call them folks, is a consciousness of everyday life. And we have to meet them there. I know Reverend Sandra Campbell said yesterday, we're the best kept secret ever. Well, we can only be the best kept secret because we don't tell nobody. Other people don't keep our secret. We keep our secret. We have to meet people where they are, consciously, physically, and spiritually. That's urban ministry, meeting people where they are, consciously, physically, and spiritually. So Let me share this. I had an opportunity here in Florida. My first church across the street was a Pentecostal church. So my first day on the job, I went across the street and introduced myself to the minister, and we shook hands. And I asked them, could we have a relationship? And on one point, we both believe in God. And let's say, period. After that, none of my business, but we both believe in God. And he said, okay, young man, he was a little older than me. He said, I go every Wednesday to the projects and walk around the projects and say a prayer for the people in the projects. And would you like to come? Well, of course. He said, now you know, don't be scared because we're in the projects. So I said, well, I'm from Detroit. I don't think I'll be scared about some dude sitting in the alley drinking wine. I don't drink, but it don't bother me. My point is, in the end, people start asking us to come in and would we pray for them? Would we do things for them? And that was meeting them physically where they were and then spiritually. So that's urban ministry to me.
Thank you, Reverend Prentice. Reverend Harold, what is urban ministry to you?
Well, thank you. As everybody's been talking, my life kind of went through a process of how I've come to be where I am right now. And I was thinking, to me, as a child growing up in Colombia, urban ministry would have been just where we are, everywhere. Yes, we understood the different races, but we really saw each other more as a people, just with different slight skin colorations and whatnot. When I moved to New York City when I was 13, that's where I noticed the separation at the time. This is back in 76, in case you're wondering. So it's been a couple of years. And I noticed the separation of neighborhoods. You know, you had your African Americans, you had even separation within the Latinos. You know, you had your Puerto Ricans, you had your Colombians, you had just the Dominicans, the Cubans. So, and one thing that I found interesting, believe it or not, coming to Orlando back in 1990, that yes, we have some of that here, but not the way I noticed it in New York. And to me, that was a change of perception. It's like, oh, we don't have to live separated. And being, after I found unity, being at the church that I've been in, luckily over here in Orlando, for the most part, there's been a little bit of everything. And yes, from what I understand, before I got there, they have their history also about separation and whatnot. And a lot of it, it's interestingly enough, that has to do with separation with the whites and the Latinos. And there was even separation of, the white stayed here, and then one of the ministers who spoke Spanish, who was Puerto Rican, ended up having his own thing separate from this church. And I've been lucky enough that since I've been there, there has been at least an attempt to incorporate everyone. And I have seen it. Becoming a minister has helped me. I haven't been directly involved with the church, but I've always been part of the church because it's the church I found, and I call it my home church still. I don't have a church of my own, but I like to go where I am needed. And I've had the chance to try out, I'm going to say, different aspects of churching in Spanish. And I've had some success and I've had some not so good success, but it's something that I'm trying out, practicing, and I am hopeful for it. we do have the congregation. I'm going to say it's at least 1/3 Latinos nowadays. The thing that I might be running into is that most of them do speak well enough English and everything, so they might not feel like they need something in Spanish. But I know they have family, and there are always people coming in new into town that came from these Latin countries, and they don't speak English well, and I know they would appreciate some in Spanish. And little by little, I've been trying out. I've had a few, I'm gonna say, services in Spanish already, and it's hit and miss. And I'm gonna just keep trying. Especially this coming year, I have an idea of what to do. I'll go ahead and share it, and I might be kind of close here, but I'm gonna try to begin a weekly class in Spanish for something that I know we don't do anymore in Unity, but people that came before me know about something called the Quest from the La Follas, I believe that's their last name. And it just so happens how things work out. Somebody left the area and gave me and the church that I'm talking about a lot of the actual books with the workbooks for the Quest in Spanish. So my idea is to go to the new minister as soon as possible right now and see if I can start the class this coming for this coming year. It's a whole year process, and see where it takes me from there. See if I can throw in a little service here and there, and work from it. Thank you for being my ears here. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Reverend Luz, what is urban ministry to you?
There, I have muted myself. Hi, everyone. I'm really enjoying this conversation and can relate so much to what you're saying. And for me, traditionally, urban ministry was about being in the big cities, where there's a big population. But what I really realized is that the human need is expressed everywhere, whether you're in a big city or not. You have people who are experiencing poverty and racism and violence and all sorts of human conditions that I feel we are needing to be conscious of, when we're doing ministry, go beyond the walls of the church that we minister in. And so that has been a real passion for me. And I've realized that it is something that my life experience has prepared me for. When I was young, I was Pentecostal. And so I could relate to you, Prentice. My mom would drag all 8 of us and we would do street ministry. We would go and pass out tracts. We would knock on doors. My mom was passionate about spreading a word. We would stand in a corner and sing and have a service, and my little brother would collect the offering. But this was a way of being in community without being afraid, because we knew who was greater in us. And we were feeling very powerful. So I grew up with that. Then I became a teacher. And as an educator, I got to see so much poverty, so much need among the children in the families in this community that I now minister in. So I feel that urban ministry is about being a presence in your community. And not just a presence, but demonstrating love in action. What is it that is here? What is it that is being needed here? And how can we care for the welfare of the people around us? Because it really, in the end, it would impact us. And as we know, in unity, we are one. So as we do unto others, it will be done unto us. So I am really passionate about that. Now, when I came here, however, there had never been any outreach. It was Sunday services and classes indoors. And so it's been quite an experience moving us beyond the walls of the church, going out there. I mean, we recently did an Alzheimer's walk, the team, and we were out there with them. We've been part of the Pride community and what they do. We've been out there doing back to school fundraisers so that we can do outreaches to the children in our community and food drives. And I mean, it's picking up. I mean, the congregation is getting really on fire about this, you know, but it's taken almost 3 years to get there. And I'm excited because that's what it ignites passion in me, to be a presence in the community. And like Roxanne said, not to assume what they need, but become aware, join a chamber of commerce, you know, go to the community meetings, be there with the people where they live and work and play. And that's where you find out what's really happening. And it's not so much, and I'll say this last thing, it's not so much about bringing them into church. That's not what it's about. It's about being the presence of love out in your community and doing where your spirit is almost automatically driving you to do, and to do it with boldness and courage. And so, yeah, that's what unity or what urban ministry means to me.
Thank you, Luz.
Welcome.
Reverend Eric, what is urban ministry?
Good morning, everyone. Urban ministry, for me, the emphasis started with the word urban. And as I've grown in ministry, the emphasis has shifted to ministry. So urban ministry for me is not only who you minister to, but how you minister, how that ministry is administered, as it were, so that that ministry is relevant to the issues that your congregation and the larger community faces on a day-to-day basis. It means that, yes, we not only preach the principles that we espouse, but we do so in a way that in real time addresses the issues that are facing us individually, as well as, and this is the important part I'm finding, collectively. It means that we not only challenge ourselves to demonstrate those principles, but to empower people with those principles so that they can transcend the issues that they are facing. From a community perspective, it can mean that we get social. Social action becomes a part of what we do, and figuring out how that looks for unity, quite frankly, because that hasn't been our primary come from. Just being real, just being honest. We're just now finding our footing. We're beginning to find our footing from a social change perspective. So now urban ministry is taking on deeper roles in the community. And it's something that has happened. Reverend Dr. Mosley was on the council, on a special council for Mayor Coleman Young. And so she understood the power and the power of the presence of our principles in the urban setting, and the importance of being of that voice, being in all levels of society. So urban ministry is, quite frankly, I'm trying to put this in a succinct way. Urban ministry is getting out of the pulpit, it's getting out of our heads, it's getting out of, and nothing wrong with being in pulpit, nothing wrong with being academic, nothing wrong with being in the ivory tower. Those are wonderful things that have its place. But then it has to translate down to the earth. There was a saying that I grew up with in my neighborhood that said, don't be so heaven bound that you're no earthly good. And so I think that for me is the core of what urban ministry is all about. It's really bringing heaven to the earth and transforming the earth of our experience with the heavens that are in our souls.
Right, thank you. We have church this morning. I mean, we're going to church this morning. All right, I'm liking this.
Reverend Garza, may I say amen?
And last but not least, Reverend Geis, what is
Wow.
urban
Wow.
ministry?
Wow. Wow. First of all, it has been stated by so many individuals and my good brother, Eric Donaldson. And if you knew his parents the way I knew his parents, you know where that energy comes from. That I have to give homage to his parents and his parents who knew Reverend Ruth Mosley quite well. Brothers and sisters, I came from a center that's right now is 105 years old, the illustrious Detroit Unity Temple. And we have been going forward, and I'm very grateful for all the statements that have been stated. Reverend Prentice, you demonstrated urban ministry not only in Florida, but also at Detroit Unity Temple. Reverend Carroll, you've been there right alongside me, and I have to say, Reverend Melanie, you're there with me right now as we go ahead and move towards demonstration. Reverend Eric, you said something I think summarized what urban ministry is when we begin to not just be in the pulpit, but we move from the head to the heart. Because when we move from the head to the heart, we have to take that heart out into the community. I'm reminded of what Jesus said to Peter when he simply said, "Feed my sheep." And he wanted us to realize that we have to do that. Jesus did not stay in one place. He wanted to go out into the community and feed the sheep. He tried to instill that thought into his disciples. He wanted them to realize that we have to go about and be about an urban ministry. I truly believe that's why Reverend Ruth chose Isaiah 61:1 as her mandate for all of us. She saw something in the urban ministry, Unity Urban Ministerial School, that she wanted us to digest that spiritual foundation.
Yes.
She taught us that it's not just about being in the ministry, that your center, your spiritual community, you have to be a part of that. It was a heartfelt integration. We have to become the activators, the inspirational motivators that went out into our community to work with the lame, to work with the homeless, to work with those who are drug addicted. We had to make sure that our centers became a vibrant center into our community, a radiant center of life that was able to fill our communities up. When the pandemic came around, we were there. We were in our community, opening our doors and feeding our communities. What I've appreciated about this community, this panel discussion, is each one of us was saying the same thing. You could feel the heart inspiration, whether it was Harold trying to be involved, whether it was what Reverend Carroll talking about. And Reverend Lux, I love how you said you took the 8 of y'all stood on a corner, collecting change and being an inspiration to that community. Urban ministry is that. You cannot sit there on just a pulpit waiting for people to come in. And Reverend Eric, you brought a great point. Unity has not done its part for a great deal. Many of us have on a small level, but we know Unity is just now birthing the process through spiritual social action. And we can't sit idly by. Prentice talked about something. We have to reach across to the various faiths. We cannot be afraid of the Baptist minister. We cannot be afraid of the AME church. We cannot be afraid of reaching the various denominations, because we have something they're reaching out and taking our message back to their own churches. We have to realize that we have to build bridges with those various community groups, various ecumenical groups. We did something at Detroit Unity Temple. We had we got involved with the church. We got involved with the council members. We got involved, we became a part of whatever was taking place to bring that unity message there, that idea of oneness, the idea that it is a state of consciousness that was spoken, that Carolyn Rose, you talked about. The idea of urban is wherever you are, God is. And that idea have to go into your neighborhood. We have to realize that we are the community. We are that factor, that spiritual factor that resides within all of us to take our principles directly into our neighborhood. But we tell everyone that each one of us are the temple, each one of us are unity, each one of us is that radiating center of God. And what affects our community affects us.
Mhm.
And so there it is. I'll leave it right there because we got a long way to go.
Yes.
Reverend Gregory. So I want to pick up on a couple things we've already touched on, and that's about social action and outreach.
Oh,
So I'm
yes.
sure those of you who've been in ministry even just a day have probably heard already. I've heard so many different ministers or congregants or churches just say, well, we've tried, but they don't come, or we tried, but they're not interested. So that's one brand of potential outreach. I know. So I want to just ask the question, what does it mean to actually do outreach? What does it mean to do social action? And how have you seen that work in your ministry? And also, how do you develop it? So Luce was saying that Reverend Luce was saying that they're been 3 years in the making. So what does that look like when you're developing the consciousness? Because as Reverend Carolyn Jean said, it's a consciousness that has to also be developed. So I know that's a kind of big question, but I'm gonna kind of leave it there. What is
Mhm.
social action? What is outreach? How do you develop it? What are the goals? What are we doing when we say that's what we're doing as part of this urban ministry agenda, spiritual
Mhm.
agenda? So
Mhm.
let's start with Reverend Prentice.
And you have a hand up as well.
Okay, thank you.
For me, I've been blessed to um, not be smart enough to be scared, I guess is the best way to say it. So I have, especially down here in St. Pete and Clearwater and Ocala in Florida, to go to organizations and join and let them know that I'm unity, that I love God, I fear God, I respect God, but I'm here to help a movement of people in consciousness. I give you an example. I was picked to address the school board in St. Petersburg because they had a habit of handcuffing young kids in school, and it seemed that all the young kids were Black. And so we addressed the school board, and I talked about institutional racism. And it was like I was talking about Latin in Latin to a bunch of English people. Nobody in that room claimed to understand institutional racism. So I came back for 3 months to address them, to teach. Now we're talking about the school board, to preach to them about institutional racism. Whereas I knew they knew, but now they knew that there were individuals in the community that were willing to stand up and address issues. What helped me was when I was in Islam. And when I joined Islam, one of the first books I had, and I still have it, was a book about the community of self. You cannot help an outside community till you understand the community of self. Well, my community, I'm big friendly. I'd rather make Kool-Aid than burn your house down. But I will bark at you. I'm not into burning down anymore, but I am into barking, being out loud. I am unity. I love God. Jesus Christ is my teacher in Wayshore. And let's talk about why you putting handcuffs on 7-year-old girls. Why are you kicking out 6-year-old boys? The little girl had a tampon. Now, I don't know why she had a tampon at 7, but she had a tampon in her purse. They searched her purse, found the tampon, and expelled her from school. If I love self, and I have a child, and I am a child, I had to go and address that. I think all of us have to do that. And they said, well, are you a reverend? You talk so loud. Are you a reverend? You drive a Cadillac. Are you a reverend because you look at us like that? Yes, I am, because I love myself. If I love myself, I have to love you. That's the bottom line. I love me enough to not be scared to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Roxanne, what are your thoughts on this area? Social action, outreach. How do we build that consciousness? Do we build that consciousness? What is the purpose?
Do we build that consciousness? I hope so. And do we need to build that consciousness? Absolutely. How do we do that? I'm still working on the correct combination for that. I do know, I heard somebody mention it earlier too, that trying to draw them in is not the answer. Trying to, prayer, we're founded on prayer, right? So we pray ceaselessly, but we still need to be in action. We still need to show up at the right town meetings, speak to the people who need to hear it the most. We have to get out and about. It isn't about Sunday, because the people I'm talking to on Sunday already understand it. But we have to get out and talk to the people in our community, the ones that are in charge, so to speak, the ones that make these decisions. I have seen too many African-American children being expelled from their little white schools and being taken to an alternative school. And for what? Like we just heard, for a tampon. I mean, stuff like that. We have to be active in being heard about the inequity of that, about the whole idea of expelling a 6 or 7-year-old in the first place. I mean, forget the fact that, yes, when I go to these alternative schools, 98% of them are of color. You get a random white kid somewhere. Who knows what that white kid had to do? I have no idea. But these schools aren't, it's like our criminal justice system. Those institutions are set up, I feel, to keep truly gifted African-American children out of our neighborhood schools. And I don't actually get that. It makes me absolutely crazy. So we have to get out and about and talk to the right people and just talk until we're heard. I think we talked about yesterday in Kelly Isola's workshop, what does it mean to be an ally? What does it take to be an ally? How can we show up and speak for these children? I know I get the opportunity to experience that because my daughter is an art teacher in one of the schools locally. And it's given me great insight and good opportunity to be present and to be heard. So thanks.
Thank you, Reverend Roxanne. Reverend Caroline Jean, what are your thoughts on this area here? You're on mute again. There we go.
I thought I had on the right t-shirt, but I apologize. Getting into where people are and how to do outreach is that you can't do it as Gregory and others, Eric and Carol and what everyone has said. You can't bring them in. And that is the thing that a lot of churches are doing things that they think will attract the people on the outside to bring them in. But we got to find people where they are. Show them, teach them, guide them to the truth. Arouse the curiosity that there's something better than where they are, that they can do different than what they're doing. And that is, as Reverend Mosley taught us, if you learn it and get it in your mind, you change yourself. And when you change yourself, then you can help change someone else because you know the difference. You know the truth. You can speak the truth. You can walk the truth. You can talk the truth. This is what we have to do. Reach the consciousness of others where they are. And then we don't have to bring them in. They will come in. That's just the way I feel about it.
Thank you, Reverend Carolyn Jean. Reverend Luce.
Thank you. So, I was thinking about how the process happened here. And I think it started with me getting really clear. Why am I here? Why am I really here? And when I was able to have the clarity that it was definitely way beyond doing Sunday services and classes, then I was able to have the conversation with the congregation. Why are you here? Why do you feel we're here? And it was really interesting. What came up was very traditional, add more classes, bring more music. It was all internal. And I realized that listening beneath what they were saying, that there was a fear. There's a fear about what you would do if you go out in the community, a fear for your well-being, a fear for what they will say about us, a fear about who you would bring in. I mean, it was very interesting to watch this process unfold. So it was more about enlisting people, brave souls who were willing to be part of a team that we formed that was called Unity in the Community. And so that's how it kind of started, and it was small, and the process itself, because really we have these beautiful principles that we know are powerful. And as Charles Fillmore says, it's not enough to know them, you don't have to live them. So if we know that we are all born with inherent worth and dignity because we are a child of God, then everybody needs to be treated with that awareness, that we are born with inherent worth and dignity. And so it needs to be a shift in consciousness about why we're here. Why are we here? And so that has led to some very interesting conversations within my community. And finally, how in my community, because it's an elderly community, a lot of elderlies, and although we're attracting some younger people now, yay! but in the elderly community, sometimes they feel, I don't want, what can I do? I'm older, I can't do anything. So before pandemic, we started to have some of the elderly community go to the schools and read to children. They could do that, be a presence there. We got ourselves some t-shirts that said, one God, one humanity in the community, So we were kind of trying to make our presence known here. And like I said earlier, it's starting to pick up a little bit. Tomorrow, we're going to be passing out over 100 bags of food into the community for Thanksgiving. And I got a lot of my elderly people coming out to say, can I help? Great. So there's a place for everyone to do something in the community and feel the energy of what that feels like in your being, because we are love and we're compelled to be that love in action. So that's how the process was for us here.
Thank you, Reverend Luce.
Well,
Reverend Gregory, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Thank you for asking.
Wait, Reverend Guys.
Yes.
This is Melanie. Before you say anything, please let me say this, Christina, because I am there with him right now. And I know he'll expound on this, but Reverend Guys, listen to me when I tell y'all, is a foot soldier. So he is going to go out. I don't know if you remember the commercial, you'll tell two friends and they'll tell two friends and so on. Reverend Guys is going to tell everybody about what we're doing at Detroit Unity Temple. You're going to know every principle. Listen, I am a, look here, I'm gonna pay you back. He is not, he sees the good in everybody. He is a separate the deed from the doer kind of person. Well, yeah, they might've done that. Well, let's Melanie, let's look at this part. So I love that. Our theme is to teach, inspire, and serve. He does that everywhere. We are the temple, not just that beautiful white building that you see, but the feet that are walking outside of it. So I just wanted to throw that part in. His passion for it is real. He is, you know, he pretty amazing. Okay, that's it. That's all you get.
One of the things that I appreciate that we do, it was stated that you have to meet the community where they are. During the pandemic, at the heart of the pandemic, we teamed up with Forgotten Harvest, and we established in one of our parking lots where we gave out over 500 meals a week. And not only did we give out the meals, we also gave out masks. We also gave out feminine products. We also gave out things that the community need, water. And from that, we set up a prayer station where people could come by and ask for prayer if they needed prayer. There was cars lined up to come by and just say, I needed a prayer. We made sure that as we teamed up there, people came and just supported us in that effort. There's a park called Palmer Park. We went into that park and met with the community to make sure as that developed. There's a place called Avenue of Fashion. We're in that Avenue of Fashion meeting with the businesses that's developing. When you go into the community, you go where they are and you begin to build a relationship. We're part of, there's a community garden. Our children established a garden that's right there. As they harvest the garden, they gave it out to the community. We wanted to make sure that we are there not only for our community, but the LGBT community as well. So we were there to advocate for them, to make sure that they realize that we're supporting them within our community. As was adequately stated by Prentice, you can't go in that community with fear. You have to meet them, you have to be supportive of them, you have to know them. And we make sure we express to them that they are valued, they are loved, and they are a product of God. So, and within our school, and I was glad to hear what you said, Luz, we have what is called Real Men Read Day, where we go into Highland Park and the men of our community go into the schools and we read to the children so they can see men reading to them. We also have what's called Real Women Read Day. So the women of our community go into the schools inside of Highland Park and we read to the children. And so we make sure that they see us inside the school system, inside the community, inside the park, and we are outreach. And then we have an active aspect where I have to tell you about this one young man from our YOU group. He's at Howard now. He came back, and when Black Lives Matter started, and they was very concerned, this young man by himself went to a corner and held up a sign and started his own proactive community, Thomas Calhoun, the fifth. And he held a sign up expressing his own peaceful protest. And then another young man started standing with him. And then another group started standing with him. And then I went out there and stood with him. And before you know, he has activated his own political movement right on this corner in Southfield. And then we went out there and stood with him. And then I brought him on a service on a Sunday, and he began to explain why he did it. It was his unity principles that caused him to be a proactive motivator to express himself. And this young man has grown up in unity. His parents were of unity, but his principles of unity made him take that to become a spiritual social activist in his community and a demonstrator. And he's going to graduate this year from Howard University. But this is how our principles have taken him to the point where he was willing to go out there alone and stand up for what he believed as a spiritual social activist. And so when we teach right and teach our youth, they know how to carry on and become the word itself within our community. Mm-hmm. And so that's why urban ministry, the idea of our principles being instilled within our youth, can go forward to be an activator and inspirator of these teachings. And that's what unity needs to instill.
Reverend Eric, thank you. Reverend Eric, where are you at on all this good stuff?
Excuse me for a moment. I'm having a moment. Tommy Calhoun is the son of one of my very best friends.
Bless you, my brother. You know what I'm talking about, then. You know him. You know the type of child that young man is because you know his parents.
Mm.
And his parents are just like he is. So Eric know what I'm talking about. He's a fabulous young man.
I'm just overcome with joy. Partnership is a big piece in all of this. Oftentimes we try to do it all ourselves. And I think that when we are clear about what is ours to do and what we have in resources, the abundance of resources that we are, people and things, then it equips us to create collaboration and partnerships. And so for social justice, how this all comes together in my mind is to go to the community, but find out who's doing what in the community and find out where there are opportunities to support one another for a common goal. Here in Sacramento, we have an organization called Sacramento Act, SAC Act, that our senior minister, the Reverend Kevin Ross, is on the board of, is a part of, been a part of for quite some time. And it is an organization of some 80 faith communities that come together for a common purpose. They're able to circumvent all of their so-called spiritual differences in order to come together for common causes. And they do so in fantastic ways, bringing voice to those are quote unquote in power, from and representing the communities that they all lead and that they all lead. This organization often works with other organizations in order to widen and broaden the voice, to make the voice amplified, as it were. And this came into play during the murder of Stephon Clark here in Sacramento. And there was something that we all saw that was systemically wrong with what happened in that situation. It allowed these communities, these organizations, to combine their efforts to protest and to also support each other in understanding, in organizing enough so that the message of the protest would not get circumvented or spun into something that it wasn't, so that the message would resonate clearly. As a result of all of this, it affected the change in law. AB 392 was passed that made certain that an appropriate amount of force would be utilized, if any force at all, in these types of situations that Black people in particular were finding themselves in, getting killed by city authorities. It's basically a state execution because of the powers that would support protecting police officers rather than the citizens that they're supposed to protect. All right. So hopefully you can see how through collaboration, through an understanding of who we are, through an understanding of structures and systems which ministers are very good at, we are able to promote growth and change. Now that's social justice, working together, people working together for social change. But there's another aspect to that we've done here at Unity of Sacramento. Because in the process of this, we saw that people needed support. And so what we did was we brought in and helped to found something called Safe Black Space. Safe Black Space was for African Americans who were traumatized by the violence that they were seeing and experiencing with these police brutalities and police shootings. And it brought them together with psychological professionals, psychiatrists, people that are in the field of helping people and also understood our principles of healing so that people would have a safe space to breathe and to voice what they were feeling so that they can begin to mend. We also brought together police officers so that we can begin to understand what they were experiencing and going through and some of the things that they had to mitigate so that they could understand that they are part of a larger community and not isolated to the point where they feel that it's us against the world. And oftentimes, quite frankly, we have these little organizations that are initially made to support their efforts, like the police officers and the fraternal order of police, but then they go so far that they support their own selves and forget what their cause for the greater good is or could be. So for me, to sum up, social justice is really finding community with all of the areas and factions and organizations that create a society, so that one part understands the other and are not at odds with one another. And that to me is something that Unity in particular, I believe, can do well, can find its voice in and have impact. Because after all, we're Unity.
Thank you. So, oh my gosh, I am so being fed. Who is being fed here this morning? I didn't have breakfast, but I am so being fed. Thank you. So we're going to go into the time of questions, but before that, I do want to give our two panelists at least an opportunity out of equity to share just what they would like to share about this area of social action. So I think Reverend Carol and Reverend Harold are the only two that we have yet to hear speak, and then we'll move into questions. Put your questions in the chat. I know Reverend Judy had a question she had to leave. I don't see it in the chat, but Reverend Kelly, I don't know if you caught it. So we'll start with that first, and then someone else had their hand up. But before that, Reverend Carol and Reverend Harold.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, when I moved to Unity Village in 1982 to complete the last year of my training, I had to take on the culture of the Unity movement.
the culture then was give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, or teach him to fish and he eats for a lifetime. So Unity did not get involved in social and political issues. That was out of our range. We just got involved in the Unity teachings and that was it. Most of the time in the ministries where I served, my Unity church was ostracized anyway, because we were considered a cult. And I was also ostracized many times from the pastoral meetings. I mean, I was there, but I was invisible. And I remember in my second church, I closed down. When I got there, they had a soup kitchen. And I remember closing that down because of the belief that, if you give a man a fish, he eat for a day, or you teach him to fish and he eat for a lifetime. And I remember I got many notes from my fellow ministers congratulating me on closing that kitchen down. Of course, Unity has evolved from that. Now we are called on to be involved in everything, in social issues and political issues, and any issue that may come up. One of the things that I have enjoyed being a part of is working with Reverend Geis for the last 10 years and watching him go out into the community. I mean, he really goes out into the community. You can't keep him back. And the programs that he has set up. For example, one of the things that he is going to be doing this next week is offering the vaccines and flu shots to the community. That's something we would have never been involved in. So, just to watch him be involved and be the person that he is, it really has strengthened my ministry and also evolved my ministry because of the way that I was taught and coming full circle around. I am so proud of the way that we are evolving as a movement, becoming involved. I mean, being really unity. So things have changed, and I think they have changed for the better. And that I really appreciate.
Thank you, Reverend Carol. And last but not least, Reverend Harold, if there's anything you want to share before we move to questions.
Sure, thank you. The first thing that came to mind for me was, and it was touched on, and I appreciate everything everyone has said, and I have learned a lot just listening to everybody. It really is to start with yourself. When we start, and it is mentioned, we start going within, but then we need to go without, meaning taking action. And in so many different ways, and more eloquently that I could say right now, everybody has kind of mentioned that. And another thing that I got from everything here is that to get that social aspect out into the world and to have it keep growing, we need to go. Did I lose my Zoom? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, because I think my Zoom is breaking up here. So anyway, and just what it has mentioned, Gregory Geis basically had a beautiful example, which is what I was thinking is, yes, as we get our youth and our Unity youth, especially, that I know is so amazing. And one of the things I know what apparently we have trouble with is the next generation Unity that we seem to be losing. And I think it's in general, just in the whole social aspect of humanity, that in the 20s or so, the young people kind of go off on their own. And if we can go out to where they are, and yes, it begins with the actual social media and not necessarily Facebook, because they think that Facebook is for old people. So we need to meet them where they are, as it has been said, and we can try to reach them where they are so that they can incorporate what we're instilling in unity, hopefully, so that they can move on and keep unity and this social movement that should be what unity is about, to keep it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. So our first, I know somebody had their hand up, Reverend Leslie. Where's Reverend Leslie?
Hi, here
Hi,
I am.
there you go.
Mm. I've heard a lot of good things today, and I thank you very, very much. Reverend Gregory is one of my favorites, and Reverend Eric, because I saw a lot of you going through school. A lot of your names I saw even as I left the school to go into whatever, because I did not know. But one thing I was glad to do when I came out of school was go back to my church. And we are all individualized expressions of God. So we express our ministries in many, many different ways. The truth that we teach is not just with us in unity, it's within all faiths. Everybody is teaching their own version of the truth. I have had the chance to see that in action. I have had a chance to really learn how to love everybody, no matter where they're at in Detroit. If they're under a bridge, if they're on a corner begging for food, I keep change in my card, and I give them that change. So I am being the best that I can be every day. I am loving myself. I love the teachings of Fillmore's, but unity is an ever changing, because it's a graduation without an education without a graduation. We're ever changing and we're ever learning in this world at this time. So what you know today will change because what you learn tomorrow. So we're gonna always change. I like all the ideas, quests helped me find out that I wanted to go into unity. I'm glad that you wanted to go into ministry. I'm glad that you're teaching that, Harold. It's a wonderful course of study to know yourself. I have had the privilege of being in the background, I would say, of my church ever since I've been there, but I have had that privilege. Sometimes the background people are the people that affect the most change in your church, because when they know who they are and really go out and teach love, then they are doing something. I have a minister that's not in our faith, but he is from another faith. But at this time, he doesn't always go out and say he's a minister, but he can go into a room full of concerns and everything and just say, I love everybody. I love everybody, and set his intention of loving and being loved. He's love first, and then everybody that comes to him is love, because love is what it is in my world. Because if you don't love yourself, you don't love anybody else, and it won't go no place. Your words will fall from you and they won't have any meaning. So I'm forever learning to love myself just as I am, and to be better and better each day. So as individualized expressions of God, each of you, when you're dropped into that community by God's grace, you are influencing that community, whether or not it's for a long time or whether or not it's for a short time. You are influencing that. I've gotten a lot of ideas. I've gotten a lot of validation that what I knew as unity is ever evolving. It's not staying the same. It's learning about different faiths and learning about the truth about yourself.
Amen,
I,
amen. Spirit is
I,
moving here this morning.
I want to add this. The man that's in charge of unity, that's at my church now, which is called Godland Unity Church, is not in our faith, but he's in the truth of God. And he is teaching unity, even though he wasn't born into that. He was born into another church entirely that I would have never went to, but he became a bishop, and now he speaks loudly about he's being different, and he's molding the community because he loves himself. And as long as you love yourself, you're doing what Spirit called you to do, and bring some spirit into the movement. You are I feel that you're going to be on the right track. I love what Gregory's doing. I love listening to Kelly and Melanie. I love listening to all of you, because I see us unfolding into another phase of this journey. I've started a lot of programs, and a lot of them didn't go the way I wanted them to go, because you cannot put your expectations on a bunch of grown folks. You got to let them be what they're going to be. So keep up the good work.
Well, we've
Keep
got
up the good work.
Thank you. We've got 10 minutes left. This is a whole day's conversation, as we can clearly see, because there has just been so much information that is here, so much beauty, and so much to just digest and just feel into. So I'm going to take questions, though, because we got 10 minutes.
One second. Reverend Christina, Reverend Judy did leave, she had to leave, but she did leave in the chat room that her church participates by bringing food, bringing in the food to the poor and neglected children in the neighborhood, and also providing food and clothes for some people so that they could attend church. So that was one of the things she wrote in there. And Reverend Watana and Reverend Sandra were mentioning the importance of starting with the children, bringing the principals in with the children, and that was what Myrtle Fillmore did. I wanted to mention that too, because there were those things in the chat that I'm sure they might have wanted to mention. So you can go ahead.
So much, Kelly. Yeah, it's so hard when you're monitoring it. So somebody needs to be doing the chat. So thank you. You're on that. Does anyone have a question for the panel? Any questions, burning questions that they want to? You can raise your hand. There's a little in the reaction function. There's a little bar that says raise your hand. You can click on that and I'll see who wants to raise their hand and ask a question. Have a comment, thought, idea. Aha, uh-oh, ooh-hoo. Nobody? Too much, just
I
mind
don't see
blown,
any
right?
raised hands.
Too much, mind blown, right? Your mind is just blown right now.
Chris DeGiorgio said he would love to have this discussion every year, and I agree. I agree. It's going to be even more powerful in person. We're going to have to find a way to do it in person and on Zoom, so that those who can't make it next year can be able to watch it from Zoom somehow. So this is going to be powerful. But I don't see any other hands raised. So Reverend Prentice, is that you raising your hand, or you just, Reverend Bonnie? Reverend Bonnie
raising my hand.
I just have a brief comment. I'm just so grateful for this entire experience, because as a young person in living in Memphis, Tennessee, I had heard about unity, and I had heard, and I had a desire. I had heard that you had to go away and stay for 2 years. And I was a young single mother. And so I stuffed that desire down into my heart, because I knew that I couldn't leave my child, and my family, who needed me at that time for financial support. And then I moved to Detroit. And when I moved to Detroit, I heard about a woman named Ruth Mosley who was teaching unity. And so my opportunity rose up a little bit more in my heart. And lo and behold, I connected to Reverend Shahara Stevens. Reverend Shahara Stevens was also trained by Ruth Mosley and went to Unity. And so in sharing my desires and hopes with her, she told me about a woman named Catherine Thomas. And once I contacted Catherine Thomas, I guess everybody knows there, it was a done deal. It was a done deal for me. And that hope had risen up to become realized. And I appreciate it because that is why I stand here today. You know, it is a wonderful experience to know that it can happen. Your hopes and dreams can, you know, be realized in you standing on that faith. So I just thank you all. I thank you all that have come before us. And I thank what is happening with the Unity movement.
Thank you.
All right. I see.
We'll take
I see a
this
lot of
last
comments.
comment. Yes, sir.
I see a lot of comments about we need to keep this conversation going and we need to do it next year. I'm older than some of you and younger than some of you. I am tired of conversations, but I know conversation is what makes it happen. I would like to see this happen next year and the year after that and whenever. But I would like to hear people say, I heard something and I did something. So when we come back next year, don't tell me about how good Eric's talk was or Gregory. We know they can talk. We know they do. We know Melanie do. I know Lutz do. But we need to hear some other people say, wow, I heard this and this is what I did. When I hear what you did, it motivates me. Oh, he did that. I can do that. So please, let's talk, but let's have some action. And my last statement is from my hero, my musical hero. He said, save the babies. And if you want love, you will get love.
That's what Watana, I think, was gonna say. She had her hand up right before you mentioned the last one, Christina.
Okay, go ahead. We'll take that one. I'm sure we have at least a couple minutes.
There you go.
Me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. Life changes, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And I'm all, Jesus is my mentor because Jesus said, bring the kids to me, bring the children to me. He knew that the kids knew all about God. They knew about themselves. And Prentice, love you dearly. And I'm going to share action, not just words, but action. And I believe in the fifth principle. And every time our region, through our uniteens, our YOU get together, they must do service. They have to do a service project. We can't talk about it. We have to do. And so we had our first live rally in 2 years. And what they did was they put together packets for middle schoolers and high schoolers that are in a hospital, actually in Kansas City, that are terminal. And they put together materials that they're serving kids that are equal to them. And they wrote beautiful affirmations and cards. They have that will be sent to them this upcoming week to serve on their level, to go out into the community. We have brought groups of uniteens to go out into the soup kitchens, to serve, for our area that was devastated by hurricanes. They made little gingerbread men out of material for kids that had nothing. They made prayer blankets. These are things that we can easily teach our kids to honor themselves, and not only honor and love themselves, but do so in the giving and working together to serve a greater community. Really, we're all one. And I love how everyone said you have to first love and honor yourself. And that is what we do with our young people. Is everyone is different, and that is a beautiful mixture of soup, and how delicious we are all together. And when we come together to the table, bringing our gifts and working together to serve a greater good, there is nothing greater than the expressions that our young people have and receive. The more that we give, the more that we receive. And when we allow our young people to get up on that podium at our sanctuaries and share with congregations how they served, and to really be a part of that church community, that will keep them coming back when they're older to their churches, their sanctuaries, and unity. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like you, Bonnie, I am ever so grateful for Ruth, and I am ever so grateful for Vernell, who asked me to write a recommendation for her. And we talked church in the Wendy's parking lot, and before I knew it, I was on my way to the Urban School. So I'm ever so grateful how Spirit works through all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I saw briefly in the chat, somebody talked about a committee, creating a committee maybe to gather some of these resources. The gauntlet has been thrown down by Reverend Prentice. He wants to know next year what we have done. So I'll take that as Spirit's called me to work with the committee here to see how we can get that moving and move that forward as we work throughout the year, and we can kind of come back next year on this. So I'm going to just close with some application. I'm sorry,
Christina.
You gotta close.
Yes.
I'd just like to thank you for being an outstanding moderator.
Yes.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Reverend Carol. So we're going to end with just some summaries of what we have done here today via affirmations, because that's how we do, right?
Yes.
So just ask everybody to speak them out loud, because this is what we know to be the truth of our being. I am an activator.
I am an activator.
I am an activator.
I am an inspirator.
I am an
Inspirator.
I am a motivator.
I am
a
Motivator.
I am delicious.
I am
delicious.
I am love.
I am love.
And I am urban consciousness.
And I am urban
consciousness.
And so it is. Thank you. It's been my honor to be here with you all. Have a wonderful rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go to your workshops now.